All right. Welcome back. This is the Junto episode 37. I'm Noah Sawyer. I don't think you were able to hear anything I was just saying. So, anyway, I'm going to do a third installment of the Tao Te Ching reading series. I'll probably do the whole book over the course of some weeks and, just here and there. Anyway, yeah, I was going to do a fuller episode. I kind of wanted to talk about this concept of having nothing better to do, because when you do go and use your phone or scroll on your phone or check for notifications, it's like, do I really have nothing better to do than do that? And when I got home today from hanging out with a friend, we talked for several hours and it was great. And we were sitting outside in the sun, which we haven't been able to do all winter. And as soon as I got home, I really wanted to check my phone. So I have a smartphone that only works on Wi-Fi, and I leave it at home and I leave it off when I don't have something I need to use it for. And I was really tempted to turn it on and check and see if anything was new, see if I got any messages or, if there's any notifications or anything like that. Just those things that we compulsively desire to check. And so I was looking for my phone and I was kind of bargaining with myself while I was doing it. I was like, well, I shouldn't check my phone. I should just go make food because I'm hungry, but I'd really like to. So I was like, all right, well, I'll find my phone and I'll turn it on, but then I have to pray first, and maybe through prayer I'll decide not to check my phone. Like, I was bargaining with myself basically, and I couldn't find my phone, and I wound up just going to the bathroom and thinking to myself in the bathroom, I was like, that is so crazy, because there's so many better things to do than check my phone. Like, there's nothing that could happen on that phone that would matter to me at all over the next several hours, but it's just so addictive. The desire to check it is so deep, and it's crazy because it really is. It's bad for us to do that. It's bad for your brain to get used to that. Like, I often think of it as, every action or decision or activity that we engage in, it's either helping us or hurting us. Obviously there's many dimensions to those things, but when I'm using a phone, it's like, literally, do I have nothing better to do? Like, is this really what I want to do with my life? It reminds me of that quote from my old voice teacher: discipline is remembering what you really want. And the start of that quote is like, oh, I have it right here. You are entirely responsible for cutting through your own laziness, addictions, and unclarity. There's nothing to wait for and nobody to blame. And that's an example of kind of all three of those things. Laziness because I'm hungry, but I'm putting off cooking food, which is an active activity. And an addiction because I'm addicted to the phone. I just want to check it for the sake of however my dopamine circuitry works. Like, I want to see if there's like notifications or YouTube statistics that are interesting. And there were, like, ultimately when I did look at my phone, luckily I didn't do it for a few hours, but actually, a decent number of hours because I fell asleep. But, yesterday was like, the watch time on YouTube was really high. Like, peak with the maximum that I've ever hit in a day. So that's always nice. But yeah, that's the thing. It's like, okay, well, that's nice, but that has nothing to do with the mission. Like, I have to make the show no matter what. Even if nobody's watching it, I'm going to do it and make it better. So knowing that is just kind of satisfying this weird dopamine thing for me, that I need to be working without that. I need to be working for something that is more important and more, separate from any of those little accidental things that come with it along the way. I need to be working for the substance of the thing. So yeah, but it's also an example of unclarity, because I was there and I was like thinking, well, I wasn't thinking this in the moment, but the fact that I wanted to check my phone, that comes from fog or unclarity, because if it was clear that you had better things to do, you wouldn't even think about checking your phone. And that's the thing. We all do have much better things to do with our time, but we've become very unclear, and it has become hard to register what those things are or how to do them, or it becomes difficult to do them. And yeah, that's extremely important to remember and to work on so that we can get rid of those bad habits and actually become like competent people in a world that is getting increasingly dangerous and oppressive. So anyway, on that note, I guess I will just get into reading the Tao Te Ching because it is. Oh, well, one more thing about that, because like I said, I was hanging out with a friend who I haven't seen in a little bit, and we were catching up, and it was a very nice day. And I notice that when you have a very nice day or a very good experience, or you do something highly positive, the urge to check the phone is that much stronger. It is really insidious how that works, because I mean, I haven't tried to map out how that works in my experience, but there is something like, there's a few things going on. Like, I feel like it is trying to get you to forget how good that activity was. That was whatever your anxiety, I'm using anxiety broadly as like, whatever's trying to keep you on your phone and keep you out of real life. I'm calling that anxiety right now. So that is pulling you away because you just had this very good experience. And if you learn to be having those active out in the world experiences with other people, that spells danger for your anxiety, because a life that is lived is a life that's uncertain. It's a life that's unplanned, and it's a life that's uncontrolled, and it's a life that is, in a sense, unsafe. So that anxiety tries to just convince you like, oh, well, no, like, forget about that and go on your phone, like, wipe your brain, like the Men in Black, like, memory flashlight thing. And, it just, that's one way that it works. And the other thing that kind of becomes apparent to me right now is I feel like it is like taking advantage of the fact that you do feel really good as well, and it's channeling that and trying to almost like piggyback off of it, where it's like, okay, well, you feel really good about that experience now, well, you'll feel even better when you go and check your phone and there's notifications or something like that, and then you forget about the earlier stuff. You'll be channeled into this. It feels like it's manipulating the pleasure feeling to get you to be complacent. So with that in mind, I think the Tao Te Ching is a really great book of strategy, of life strategy, of political strategy, and of psychological strategy. I guess, well, for like dealing with being a psychological creature as much as a physical one. And yeah, I think it provides a lot of great advice for navigating the world at all levels, at the personal level, at the social level, at the culture making level or political level of trying to make moves in the world. And yeah, anyway, just a great book. So I'm going to read from two translations. There's this Feng translation that Vintage put out, and then there's this old McClellan and Company publication translated by Dr. Isabella Mears. And this one is awesome, especially for these next 10 verses. Like, there's translations I really love in this one. This was the first copy I ever read, and I recommend this one to people. If I ever see it, I buy it for people. And it's good, but it definitely doesn't really shine in these 10 verses from, what am I doing, 21 to 30. Not the best, but it primes you, because if you've never heard this before, I think it, with any poem, you need to think about it. A podcast is not really the best way to experience a poem, but I think it functions as a primer. It functions as a good comparison. But the Dr. Isabella Mears one, I just read for the first time like 20 minutes ago, just while I was doing my vocal warm-up. I read it aloud, and there's some really, really nice stuff in here. I should look into who she was, because this is a really impressive translation, and I like her notes, and I like the other sources she pulls from. It's pretty interesting. So with that said, yeah, I just need a I don't know, I said this when the video was muted, but I don't know if I said it after I fixed the audio, but I was planning to do a bigger show, and then I fell asleep on the floor, And well, yeah, I guess to put it together with the other side of the story, like, when I had that realization after I'd left my room, I'd given up on looking for my phone. I was like, I was disturbed basically by the fact that I was so drawn to going on my phone, because it destroys your time. It destroys a whole lot more than that, but at the least it destroys your time. And like I have food to cook, I have a show to plan. And so anyway, instead I just went and made some chicken and ate it, and then I played guitar, which was not something I was planning to do today, but it just was so nice. And I'm not much of a guitarist. I'm mostly a bassist and a drummer, but I played guitar for 30 minutes. Just, I don't know. It just, when you play continuously and you start finding, I mean, a great way to practice in general with lots of things, but certainly on musical instruments is, you play until there's something you stumble and you're like, oh, I couldn't do that. And then you just play that thing over and over until you're able to do it. That's nice. So I did that a few times, and it just feels like you open your mind, because you start thinking about the notes or not even thinking about them, you start experiencing them as this, like, it feels like a neurological map being explored when I'm like trying to articulate something better with or intonate is probably the better word for that. Intonate something more clearly. And anyway, and then I just, I don't even know. I was probably just started doing some stretches or something and fell asleep. So that's how it goes. But anyway, so I was going to do a larger episode, and now I'm groggy. I'm just going to do an easy one. I'm going to do some readings. So back to the Tao Te Ching it is. And yeah, always good to go back. That is a theme of the Tao Te Ching, is return, yielding and returning. So I'll just throw up on the screen here which verse I'm on and when. I think I'm starting with 31, right? Oh no, 21. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I'll read from the Feng version first, and then I will do the same verse from Isabella Mears. All right. And like I said, I love this book. It's good, but some of these translations are noticeably a little lackluster in comparison to what I think Isabella is pulling out of it. And real quick before I start, if you could like the video and subscribe, I really appreciate it. And I've got a Patreon set up too, where I can mail you some books and stuff like that. So I appreciate all the support that I've been getting. The channel just keeps growing, and that's really great. So, all right, this is verse 21. Yep. The greatest virtue is to follow Tao, and Tao alone. The Tao is elusive and intangible. Oh, it is intangible and elusive, and yet within is image. Oh, it is elusive and intangible, and yet within is form. Oh, it is dim and dark, and yet within is essence. This essence is very real, and therein lies faith. From the very beginning until now, its name has never been forgotten. Thus I perceive the creation. How do I know the ways of creation? Because of this. That one reminds me of the earlier one about look, it is beyond form, or touch, it is beyond tangibility. I forget how it was translated exactly, but I actually will read one just from this Brook Ziporyn translation, which is the most recent one from Live Right Books, and because I do like the way he puts part of this one. So yeah, those who grand powers of virtuosity have shown followed their course and their course alone. Those who grand powers of virtuosity have shown followed their course and their course alone. But what kind of thing is this course with which we are called to comply? Naught but confusion, pure indistinction, is there to meet our eye. So very unclear, so very confused, in this itself is an image construed. So very confused, so very unclear, in this itself does something appear. So very unreachable, so very dimmed, in this a kernel, an essence is limbed. A life-giving kernel, so real and true, for in it is something reliable, too. From ancient times until today, such names as these don't fade away, for they reveal incipients of every kind to our survey. How did we discern all the many shapes and forms of incipients? Through just this. But yeah, I especially like that part where he puts it's unclear and it's confused, and yet within is the image construed, yet within does something appear. Because that's a good way of describing intuition, where it's like you can't lay it out in terms of law or information, and yet you can understand what it is beyond all that uninformational. The only word I can think of is data. Like that uninformational perceptual data is kind of like, the way I think of it. All right, so Isabella Mears here. This one has a long note at the end that I will read. The complete manifestation of things visible proceeds only from life. In its nature, life is always coming into activity, yet in itself it eludes our sight and touch. Eluding sight, eluding touch, within it are hid the plans of created things. Eluding touch, eluding sight, within it are hid all created beings. It is profound, it is obscure, within it is hid pure spirit. It is pure spirit, enfolding truth. Within it is hid an infallible witness. From of old until now, its name remains unchanged. Through its doorway comes the universe into existence. How do I know that the universe is coming to full perfection through life? The witness is in life itself. I think this one is very beautiful. And I'm in this first series, I'm just going to read. I'm focusing on reading with not so much commentary. I think I might, at a later date, kind of just pick my favorite translations of verses and talk more at length and really connect it to the worlds that we live in now and how it is applicable to moving ahead. But for now, I'm just gonna, keep it kind of simple. So the note on this one: at the beginning of our study of the Tao Te Ching, we found, by analysis of the characters, that the meaning of Tao seemed to be the progressive intelligence or life consciousness, and De, manifestation of life. By the way, this she's writing this in like 1911 or something. Like it's pretty far back, and she's talking about progressive intelligence and life consciousness and stuff. That terminology I feel like is really like beaten to death now, but there were interesting conversations going on in the early 20th century with respect to that. So, and De, manifestation of life. T-E-H, De. It's just the old transliteration of Chinese used T's, but the actual way you say it is with a D sound. And De is manifestation of life. As we proceed with the study, giving attention now to the dominant idea of the book, we seem to find that the only adequate English equivalent for Tao is life. The Tao is magical master of change, giving a mysterious urge to the expression of itself in form, to growth towards maturity, to continuous evolution leading to perfectness, to such a fullness of life that decay is precluded. Transmutation, transfusion, and transformation are all in the scheme of Tao, as in the scheme of life. They overcome decay as life overcomes death. So, in another small book dealing with life, the Gospel of St. John, we read of life finding expression in the Word, making all things, giving light of understanding to men, giving power to those who receive of its fullness. We read of one so full of life that it was easy for him to transmute elements, to transfuse health into those who lacked it, to transform men from low moral grade to a high spiritual grade. We read that this same one had such fullness of life in himself that when he was crucified and dead, his mortal body did not decay, but was transmuted into a spiritual body which burst the bonds of death, came out of the grave, and gave assurance of a boundless and inexhaustible well of life for men. In relation to this chapter, it is interesting to note the following quotations from the Bhagavad Gita. The first one: "Within thy form, O God, the gods I see, all grades of being with distinctive marks." So I guess that's referring to a unity God. I don't really know much about the Bhagavad Gita at all. Within the unity are all those so-called gods that I see. And the second quote: "Thine inner being I am fain to know. This thy forth streaming life bewilders me." All right. So Let's go to verse 22. Back in the Feng translation. Yield and overcome. Bend and be straight. Empty and be full. Wear out and be new. Have little and gain. Have much and be confused. Therefore the wise embrace the one and set an example to all. Not putting on a display, they shine forth. Not justifying themselves, they are distinguished. Not boasting, they receive recognition. Not bragging, they never falter. They do not quarrel, so no one quarrels with them. Therefore the ancients say, yield and overcome. Is that an empty saying? Be really whole, and all things will come to you. From Isabella. That which is incomplete becomes complete. The crooked becomes straight. The empty becomes full. The worn out becomes new. He who obtains has little. He who scatters has much. That is why the self-controlled man holds to unity and brings it into manifestation for men. He looks not at self, therefore he sees clearly. He asserts not himself, therefore he shines. He boasts not of self, therefore he has merit. He glorifies not himself, therefore he endures. The master indeed does not strive, yet no one in the world can strive against him. The words of the ancients were not empty words. That which is incomplete becomes complete. Acquire completeness by returning it. Something I was thinking about in the verse, the lines here, the crooked becomes straight, the empty becomes full, the worn out becomes new. So much, I think some verses in the Tao Te Ching really benefit from thinking at various time scales where it's like, how does the empty become full? I guess I'm thinking about even just the disintegration of things. And then there is sort of a vacuous sense of truth in which the worn out becomes new, in that it degrades and it becomes something else. It just there will always be a limit it reaches whereat it changes again. So 23 in Feng. To talk little is natural. I think about this all the time. Not just that line, but this. So, to talk little is natural. High winds do not last all morning. Heavy rain does not last all day. Why is this? Heaven and earth. If heaven and earth cannot make things eternal, how is it possible for man? He who follows the Tao is at one with the Tao. He who is virtuous experiences virtue. He who loses the way is lost. When you are at one with the Tao welcomes you. When you are at one with virtue, the virtue is always there. When you are at one with loss, the loss is experienced willingly. He who does not trust enough will not be trusted. But just that early part, high winds do not last all morning, heavy rain does not last all day. So to talk little is natural. Like you can't always be on in a certain way. Like you do have to I don't know, there's an undulating quality, there's an ebbing and flowing to life that affects everything that we experience in life, and there needs to be some level of acceptance of that, especially, and that acceptance becomes easy when you do look at the natural world and you see that, like, you know, if heaven and earth cannot make things eternal, how is it possible for man? Change is part of the game. So from Isabella Mears here. With few words affirm thyself. A great wind does not blow all the morning. A heavy rain does not continue all day. Why is it so? It is because of the interrelations of heaven and earth. If heaven and earth cannot make things last long, how much less can man? Therefore he who follows the service of Tao is one with Tao. He who is virtuous is one with virtue. Or, sorry, it's de there, but I feel like it's really unclear when I read that. So I'm inclined to translate her use of de as virtue, because it is, but I'll say de just to follow through. Therefore he who follows the service of Tao is one with Tao. He who is virtuous is one with de. He who fails is one with failure. He who is one with Tao, Tao shall also claim him. He who is one with de, de shall also claim him. He who is one with failure, failure shall also claim him. Faith that is not complete is not faith. Note, to affirm self seems to mean that we should not be concerned with negatives nor with failures, but that we should live in the affirmative aspect of life, reaching always out after goodness and letting our personal influence flow out in blessing without effort. The phrase recurs in later chapters. And there's one thing in the Feng translation I forgot to mention at the end here. When you are at one with loss, the loss is experienced willingly. I think there are many ways you could interpret that, and one that is interesting to me is to think, so when you are at one with loss, the loss is experienced willingly. So to say at one with loss, you could frame that as having strayed from the Tao, or getting lost in the realm of worldly things, or becoming confused, becoming conflicted, becoming afflicted. When you are at one with loss, when you choose loss, and chooses in quotes in a certain way because it is so much of our choices are influenced, although ultimately it is we who make them. So when you are at one with loss, the loss is experienced willingly. It's emphasizing the fact that no matter what is going on, we make that choice at the end of the day. And I think that's something that can be overlooked in our current society, but that's something that a lot of postmodern philosophy, they look at other cultures, or they look at all cultures as relativistic, or their values are relative to the circumstance in which they are brought up. That is the premise that you see in a lot of postmodernism, and that is there is a truth to, like, when I say we are highly influenced, I don't just mean through the phone and everything. It's like we're influenced by our environment, we're influenced by who we are born of, by our genetic makeup, by our world, by the earth that we're on, by the whole history of the earth. We are organisms that reconcile the outside world with our soul and make choices. But those choices are never truly deterministic. You can increasingly close off doors to people such that they behave in a highly predictable and roughly controlled way, but I don't think that door is ever totally closed, at least not for now. Like, through developments in neurotechnology, of course, that could change, but for now I think it's important to emphasize, really, I'm trying to think of a superlative for emphasis, like, just like really, it's really important to emphasize that our choices do matter, and we are responsible for them, and they have consequences for us and for the world. So with that, I will move on to verse 24. Verse 24 in Feng here. He who stands on tiptoe is not steady. He who strides cannot maintain the pace. He who makes a show is not enlightened. He who is self-righteous is not respected. He who boasts achieves nothing. He who brags will not endure. According to followers of the Tao, these are extra food and unnecessary luggage. They do not bring happiness. Therefore, followers of the Tao avoid them. This just kind of reminds me of something somewhat random. He who makes a show is not enlightened. I was thinking about the baptismal vows that you take in the Catholic Church. There's a series of vows where they'll say, do you XYZ? And you'll say, I do, if you're taking the vow. And the first three, as I've witnessed them, are, do you renounce Satan? I do. Do you, and all his works? I do. And all his empty show? I do. And that was something I was thinking about the past few days, that concept of the empty show. Because as I was describing at the top of the episode, where I got home from this great experience with a real person, a real blood and flesh person who I love, talking to them in the world, in the sun. And then I get home and I have to make food, and I have to prepare this episode. And yet I'm so drawn to wanting to turn on my phone to basically check YouTube statistics or see if I have messages. Like, that is the definition of empty show. Like, that that is just nothing. That has nothing for me. And yet I am being tempted by it. And the temptation is very real. And the temptation will make me less of a person. I believe that. It will make me a worse person in every way in my life. If I maintain a phone addiction over the course of my life, if I give in to those base desires, all kinds of base desires, but the phone is the most severe problem in our society right now in a certain way. For people at the level of decisions people make every day, the addiction to distraction, I think, is dire. And so, yeah, anyway, so that's just thinking about that line in there. He who makes a show is not enlightened. It's true in that case, obviously. It's like trivially true, like by definition. But all right, 24 from Dr. Isabella Mears here. He who stands on tiptoe is not steady. He who holds the legs stiffly cannot walk. He who looks at self does not see clearly. He who asserts himself does not shine. He who boasts of himself has no merit. He who glorifies himself shall not endure. These things are to the Tao like excreta or hideous tumor to the body. Therefore, he who has the Tao must give them no place. Nice. I mean, like, gross example, excreta's shit, but but it's true. Like those things to goodness and to the universe, to engage in that stuff it's vile. It's vile to like the respect for existence that we ought to have and the dignity that people ought to recognize in themselves and in other people and in other life on earth and in the earth itself, whether you consider it alive or not. All the qualities of the natural world. All right, so 25. From Jiafu Feng. Something mysteriously formed, born before heaven and earth, in the silence and the void, standing alone and unchanging, ever present and in motion. Perhaps it is the mother of 10,000 things. I do not know its name. Call it Tao. For lack of a better word, I call it great. Being great, it flows far away. Having gone far, it returns. Therefore, Tao is great, heaven is great, earth is great, the king is also great. There are the four great powers of the universe, and the king is one of them. Man follows the earth follows heaven, heaven follows the Tao, Tao follows what is natural. And this reminds me of something I've been thinking a little bit about lately, where it emphasizes, and the king is also great, because I think some people, like this is a popular book among anarchists, and some people might read that and be like, oh, well, he just had to say that so that, because he lived in a political system, in a political hierarchy, and thus he has to pay respect to the hierarchy, whether it's true or not. However, I do believe that that is true. And I think sometimes people will overly psychologize circumstances of the universe because they are qualities of human culture or civilization, such as the idea that, like, it's like, oh, well, he lives in a political system. Of course, he's going to recognize, or of course, he's going to believe that there's some greatness to that in the ultimate scheme of things, but really there's not. And that's just something I would dismiss. I haven't thought about it. I don't really feel totally prepared to address that right now. It just is coming up for me as I read this. But I think we need to understand that society and civilization is, I would say, it is a great power of the universe. However, it's the closest one to man. It is the most corruptible and the most dangerous and the hardest to maneuver. Rather, it is it's the furthest from the Tao. There's the Tao, the heaven, the earth, and then the political world. And that makes it it's of great importance that we don't just throw the baby out with the bathwater, because currently our political bathwater is completely fucking disgusting. But there's you can't say like, oh, well, we can't, have a ruler or a political system, like it will never work. Some people see inherent flaws in the concept of governance itself, and I don't believe in that. I think You definitely can have like ethical forms of governance, but it is the most difficult path to walk ever, and it's probably always subject to collapse and failure, just like everything in the whole world is. Everything dies, everything changes, life feeds on life. There's so much that changes, but if you have a society where some people, at the very least, are holding the Tao very close to their heart, and they are engaged in that political system and actually have power, and they're able to preserve it in the society itself. And what I mean, an example of what I mean by that is like, I don't believe in a free market. I don't believe that businesses are fine just because they're businesses. I think you really need to censor what is allowed, essentially. I don't believe in pornography. I think that should be illegal. I think there's so much that should be cut off or considered before it is brought into the world. I think the smartphone has damaged people's minds, but how was it introduced? It was introduced as a commodity on the market, just like any other novel invention on the market. And there was no ethical investigation into like, is this really what we need? Is this dangerous? What are the consequences of this going to be? But because we have this deep myth ingrained in us that the free market is ethical when it's not, it's like, it's contrary. It leads to manipulations. It leads to political domination. It leads to corruption. It leads to mob tactics. It leads to all the horrible things. And yeah, anyway, so that's just a little note on that, and I'll read it in the Mears version. So there was a being already perfect before the existence of heaven and earth. It is calm, it is formless, it stands alone and changes not. Reaching everywhere and inexhaustible, it may be regarded as mother of the universe. I do not know its name. For a title, we call it the Tao. If forced to give it a name, we call it the Great. Great, we call it the Flowing. Flowing, we call it distant. Distant, we call it the Coming Again. Therefore, the Tao is great, heaven is great, the earth is great, the ruler also is great. And the universe, in the universe, four are great, and the ruler is one of them. Man finds his law in the earth finds its law in heaven, heaven finds its law in the Tao finds its law in the affirmation of itself. First, and this is just a note from the Bhagavad Gita again, first of the gods, most ancient man thou art, supreme receptacle of all that lives, knower and known, the dwelling place on high, in thy vast form the universe is spread. So there's I was just going to say that man finds his law in the earth. Like, if that is the condition upon which you could create an ethical politics, we're clearly so far off the track, and very few people are seriously pursuing anything that resembles that actually, follows the earth, which follows heaven, which follows the Tao. So anyway, I think there was a note at the end of this that I liked for that one. Yeah, so in the Jiafu Feng one, Tao follows what is natural. This should not be taken to mean that there is a level of reality called nature that is distinct from Tao. Tao is spontaneously what it is through its own nature. And I thought that was a nice clarification. All right, 26. 10 verses is kind of a lot to read. There's a lot going on in this book. So over to 26. The heavy is the root of the light. The still is the master of unrest. Therefore the sage, traveling all day, does not lose sight of his baggage. Though there are beautiful things to be seen, he remains unattached and calm. Why should the lord of 10,000 chariots act lightly in public? To be light is to lose one's root. To be restless is to lose one's control. So I'll just go over to the Isabella Mears one. Not really much to say there. Gravity is the root of lightness. Quiescence is the master of motion. That's I read that kind of in like grind set talk. Or I've never read this before until a minute ago, but like oh, you have no motion. It's like quiescence is the master of motion. That's like making moves in silence, basically. So all right, anyway, gravity is the root of lightness. Quiescence is the master of motion. That is why a king's son, though he may travel all day long, does not cease to be quiet and grave. Though he may achieve glory, he abides in restfulness. He affirms his detachment. How sad it would be if the Lord of 1,000 chariots should conduct himself lightly in the kingdom. If his conduct is light, he will fail as a minister. If he is hasty in action, he will fail as a ruler. I'll just move on there. Not much to say about that one right now. Okay, 27, Jiafu Feng. A good walker leaves no tracks. A good speaker makes no slips. A good reckoner needs no tally. A good door needs no lock, yet no one can open it. Good binding requires no knots, yet no one can loosen it. Therefore the sage takes care of all men and abandons no one. He takes care of all things and abandons nothing. This is called following the light. What is a good man? A teacher of a bad man. What is a bad man? A good man's charge. If the teacher is not respected and the student not cared for, confusion will arise, however clever one is. This is the crux of mystery. I think this is one where I just prefer Isabella's quite a bit, so I will just skip over to this one. He who walks in goodness leaves his trace in the inner life. He who walks in goodness carries no blame to the inner life. He who reckons in goodness does not need to use a tally. The good man has power to close the inner door, and no one can open it. The good man has power to tie the inner knot, and no one can untie it. That is why the self-controlled man always uses goodness in helping men. Thus he draws them to the inner life. He always uses goodness in helping creatures. Thus he draws them to the inner life. This is called being doubly illuminated. Therefore, the good man masters the man who is not good, and the man who is not good is helper to the good man. He who does not honor his master, he who does not love his helper, though counted wise, is greatly deceived. This is called important and mysterious. Yeah, I think that is a very nice one. Okay, let's go to 28. I'm kind of curious what Brook says for that one. So yeah, I'll read this one from Brook Ziporyn. Good is the travel that follows no ruts and leaves no tracks. Good is the speech that knows no errors and finds no flaws. Good is the reckoning that uses no tallies and does no counting. Good is the closure that uses no bolting and lock, for it can never be breached. Good is the knotting that uses no ropes or restraints, for it can never be untied. In just this way are sages so constantly good, so good at rescuing people, so good at considering them good, finding not one to be worthless, abandoning none. For being so constantly good, so good at rescuing things, so good at considering them good, not one thing is found worthless, not one is abandoned. This is called extending the illumination. So it is that the good are the teachers of the bad, and the bad are the raw material of the good. Failure either to value the teacher or to cherish the material is the vast confusion found even in wisdom in quotes. For this is the wondrously unseen agreement binding the two together. Yeah, that is very nice. It reminds me that middle section about how the sages, in just this way, are they so constantly good at rescuing people, so good at considering them to be good, finding not one to be worthless, abandoning none, for being so constantly good, so good at rescuing things, so good at considering them good, not one thing is found worthless, not one is abandoned. I think I'm going to do a stream soon talking about my reflections on St. Augustine's prayer, which at first I really didn't like, because I just didn't like how it was written, and I didn't understand it. But after meditating upon it, I see like extreme depth in it. But there's a line in there which is, "Fill my heart, Holy Spirit, that I may love only what is holy. Strengthen me, Holy Spirit, that I may defend all that is holy." And about that love one, that I may love only what is holy. Well, there's an element of holiness in every created thing, and it is that which you must love in the sage finding goodness in everyone. It's like that is what you are searching for. And then when it comes to like strengthen me that I may defend all that is holy, well, it's not that everything, certainly not every action is holy or every person, but there's a part of everyone that is, and thus there is something you must defend about everybody. And I thought that was nice when it finally clicked for me, and I was like, okay, yeah, I get how he wrote this prayer now. So let's go to 28. Because like for context, he's like recognized as one of the like super geniuses of all time, and I was like, and he's also my confirmation saint. So when I first saw that prayer, I was kind of like, what? This is his prayer? But you know, just because he says holy like a million times in it, and it's only like probably less than 10 lines long, and but obviously no shade. I see the light now. I'm starting to see the light. I can't say I see all of the light, but it's starting to unlock for me what's going on in that prayer. So anyway, let's go to 28 in Jiafu Feng. Know the strength of man, but keep a woman's care. Be the stream of the universe. Being the stream of the universe, ever true and unswerving, become as a little child once more. Know the white, but keep the black. Be an example to the world. Being an example to the world, ever true and unwavering, return to the infinite. Know honor, yet keep humility. Be the valley of the universe. Being the valley of the universe, ever true and resourceful, return to the state of the uncarved block. When the block is carved, it becomes useful. When the sage uses it, he becomes the ruler. Thus, a great tailor cuts little. And from Isabella. To know manly strength, to guard womanly gentleness, is to be the central channel of the kingdom. To be the central channel of the kingdom, always manifesting life, never guilty, is to return to the innocence of childhood. To know light, to guard the darkness, is to be the model of the kingdom. To be the model of the kingdom, always manifesting life, never at fault, is to return to the bounds of the inner kingdom. To know glory, to guard humility, is to be the valley of the kingdom. To be the valley of the kingdom, always manifesting life, becoming perfect, is to return to a condition like undressed wood. Undressed wood, being made into many utensils, the self-controlled man uses them, then he becomes ruler for a long time. Thus he achieves greatness without hurt to anyone. Yeah, we need a political return to the Tao. Let's go to 29. So 29 in Jiafu Feng. Do you think you can take over the universe and improve it? I do not believe it can be done. The universe is sacred. You cannot improve it. If you try to change it, you will ruin it. If you try to hold it, you will lose it. So sometimes things are ahead and sometimes they are behind. Sometimes breathing is hard, sometimes it comes easily. Sometimes there is strength and sometimes weakness. Sometimes one is up and sometimes down. Therefore the sage avoids extremes, excesses, and complacency. That line about breathing reminds me, I've just been feeling like I have been a shallow breather my whole life, and I'm like trying to, I don't know, it's related to anxiety and stuff, I imagine. And I don't know, like normally when I read that passage or that line, I think of just exercise, like breathing is hard. But really when you exercise, or like breathing is heavy, but it's not hard. It's actually, it becomes automatic. It becomes very natural. If you go for a run and you start breathing, but breathing becomes hard when we're living in this way that is totally contrary to the human organism, spiritually and physically. And so, I don't know, hopefully I can find a way for breathing to come naturally in this world that is really imposing like intolerable conditions upon my mind, body, and soul. So 29 here from Isabella. If you desire to gain the kingdom by action, I see that you will not succeed. The kingdom is a spiritual vessel. It cannot be gained by action. He who acts destroys it. He who grasps loses it. Therefore beholds the animals. Some go in front, others follow. Some are warm, others are cold. Some are strong, others are feeble. Some keep moving, others are still. That is why the self-controlled man puts away excess. He puts away egotism. He puts away easy living. So and yeah, he puts away easy living. We need to live in a way that is very difficult but is very rewarding right now, and then all of the fruits of existence will come to us. But if you go along with that which is easiest right now, or that which is expected right now, that which is low effort and is convenient right now, obviously it's convenient to participate in our society. It's like designed around convenience for the sake of complacency. So anyway, and random note on this, if you're wondering, because that translation is quite different, there are different origin scrolls for these from ancient China. So some of these, like it's verse 29 in both of these books, but you know, this one talks about animals and the other one does not. So anyway, there's a note on this one from her. The argument seems to be that we do not conquer environment by action, but by intuition, as animals do by instinct, but that man, seeking higher things, must further practice renunciation. Compare the teaching of Edward Carpenter in Have Faith. Quote, absolve yourself today from the bonds of action. Begin today to understand why the animals are not hurried and do not concern themselves about affairs, nor the clouds, nor the trees, nor the stars, but only man, and he but for a few thousand years in history. Give away all that you have, become poor and without possessions, and behold, you shall be Lord and sovereign of all things. Yeah. And I guess I want to draw attention to, she says, like, man cannot conquer the environment by action, but by intuition, as animals do by instinct. And there's a difference there. Like, animals have instinct, we have intuition. Humans don't have instinct because we decide and because we think and because we have language and because we are social creatures in a way that others, obviously many animals are social creatures. In a sense, they all are, in that they reproduce sexually. But there is something unique about the human where you can never literally enter into an animal-like state where everything is instinctive for you, because we create, we decide. We create and we decide, and that is in Christianity, that is the concept of being created in God's likeness. We can create, we can choose to love, we can decide. So there is a freedom that we have that is the condition of our existence. And yeah, because sometimes it is like, you think like, well, how can I be like the squirrel burying nuts for winter? But there's no human version of that. We just can't tap into that level of instinct because we are just like ontologically different from animals in a certain way. All right, and the last one I'm going to read today, verse 30. So in Feng, verse 30 is, whenever you advise a ruler in the way of Tao, counsel him not to use force to conquer the universe, for this would only cause resistance. Thorn bushes spring up wherever the army has passed. Lean years follow in the wake of a great war. Just do what needs to be done. Never take advantage of power. Achieve results, but never glory in them. Achieve results, but never boast. Achieve results, but never be proud. Achieve results, because this is the natural way. Achieve results, but not through violence. Force is followed by loss of strength. This is not the way of Tao. That which goes against the Tao comes to an early end. That is that achieve results, but without glory, without boasting, without being proud, reminded me just now of like me talking about wanting to check my phone when obviously I have more important things to do, and like I'm only checking them because I want to see notifications that are irrelevant to the work that I'm doing. I need to just do the work. I need to just achieve the results and literally be completely divested from the empty show of whether people are even watching this show, because I know people are going to watch it, and I don't like it. It doesn't matter because I need to make the episodes no matter what. Nothing's going to change. Nothing I could see on my phone is going to change what I'm going to do later in the day, on a day where I'm doing the show. So anyway, I'll read that from Isabella and we can wrap it. So we've got 30. or XXX in Roman numerals. He who would help a ruler of men by Tao does not take soldiers to give strength to the kingdom. His service is well rewarded. Where troops dwell, there grow thorns and briars. After great wars, there follow bad years. He who loves bears fruit unceasingly. He does not dare to conquer by strength. He bears fruit, but not with assertiveness. He bears fruit, but not with boastfulness. He bears fruit, but not with meanness. He bears fruit, but not to obtain it for himself. He bears fruit, but not to shew his strength. Man is great and strong, then he is old. In this he is not of Tao. If he is not of Tao, he quickly will perish. I wonder if this is like, because she's Scottish, I wonder if she wrote shoe, S-H-E-W instead of show, because of being in Scotland. I don't know. Or at least it was published in Scotland. So, yeah, similarly, he bears fruit, but not to obtain it for himself. And you have to remember that the self is multiple. There's so much going on. It's not even just the ego. There's all these elements of our unconscious that we interact with but do not fully understand. We are not them and they are not us in identity. They are not exact. It's not one-to-one. So when I am tempted to check my phone and see if people watched the stream yesterday, I'm obtaining it for myself in a sense, but I'm obtaining it for a base part of myself and not my true self as I understand it. I'm not doing it for the good of myself. I'm not doing it for the good of anyone when I check those statistics. It's happening because I've been manipulated into understanding, or manipulated into having this dopamine reward circuitry that likes to see progress represented statistically on a computer. So, yeah. All right. Well, with that, I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you enjoy this series. Sometimes I just need, to read something. I can't always be spitting. So, all right. So yeah, just real quick, I will shill my Patreon. So if you want to support the show, you can support me on Patreon, and there are several ways to do that. You could, well, yeah, I'll mail you stuff if you subscribe for $10 or $20. If you subscribe for $20 a month, which lots of people have been doing, I'm actually surprised, because this is a small show, but I've received an outpouring of support compared to what I thought I would get. And yeah, so I'll mail you books. You'll get a survey, like a Google form, when you fill out the thing, and you could get, these are just examples of books. I'm a bookseller. I have thousands of books. So you get Nightwood by Juna Barnes. You could get The Sacred and the Profane by, I never know how to pronounce his name, Mircea Eliade. I don't know. I think he's Turkish. Everyday Life in the United States Before the Civil War. Like, you can specify if you like psychology, religion, old history, modern history, fiction, theater, sci-fi, because it needs its own category. I can't just be sending sci-fi to someone who says they like fiction. And anyway, you could get the persecution and assassination of Jean-Paul Marat as performed by the inmates of the asylum of Charenton under the direction of the Marquis de Sade by Peter Weiss. And that is the full title of that play. You get a little course in dreams about, I think it's a Jungian book. I don't know if it gets into lucid dreaming or if it's just about Jungian dream analysis. I don't know. There's so much shit. Oh, someone says Eliade is Romanian, not Turkish. That makes sense. Anyway, so thanks for watching. Tell your friends, like the video, leave a comment, subscribe, hit the bell, all of that. Let me know if there are other people you watch who do this kind of thing and you think maybe we could have a productive conversation or something sometime. Let me know other creators you like who do something in this vein. But yeah, that's going to do it for me, and I will, I don't know, have a good weekend. I'll probably do a bonus stream on Sunday because I'm taking most of next week off. So Sunday, Monday, then I have to attend to my responsibilities. So to my people, if you know, gotta show up for my people. So all right, have a good weekend, everybody.